Elias had always known he was different. He didn't need neighbors whispering behind half-closed curtains or classmates muttering in the hallways to remind him. The world itself seemed to recoil from him, as though he carried an invisible stain. The first time it happened, he was 7. He was sitting on the front steps of his parents' modest house in the suburbs, legs dangling off the edge when every porch light on the street flickered out at once. Not just out, burst. Glass rained onto lawns and driveways. Television screens went black. Even the hum of refrigerators inside kitchens cut short, plunging the street into a silence so absolute it made his chest tighten. He remembered the air had grown cold, too cold for summer. Shadows lengthened where they shouldn't have, pooling thickly around his shoes as though they wanted to climb up his legs. The neighbors screamed. Adults rushed out with flashlights, cursing, accusing. Elias' mother grabbed his wrist so hard it left bruises. His father wouldn't meet his eyes. From that night on, he was the strange one, the cursed boy. By 10, he had no friends. Children avoided him the way they avoided the smell of garbage, instinctively and with a wrinkle of their noses. Teachers sighed whenever he entered the classroom. One counselor wrote in a report that Elias displayed antisocial tendencies and recommended he be watched closely. He learned to keep quiet, to walk with his head down, but the whispers never stopped. He was born wrong. I heard his uncle's crops failed the year he was born. Stay away from him, he makes things happen. The cruelest part was that sometimes Elias believed them. Because strange things did happen. Computers short-circuited when he sat too close. Shadows bent at the corner of his vision. He would hear a whisper in an empty room, soft as a breath against his ear. His mother hissed at him never to speak of it. "People already think you're broken," she'd mutter, eyes red from crying. "Don't give them proof." His father, he drank, bottles piled in the trash. When Elias tried to ask him why he couldn't just be normal, the man's only answer was a bitter laugh. The day everything came to a head started like any other, miserable and gray. The middle school gymnasium smelled of sweat and dust. Elias was supposed to be playing dodgeball, though playing was generous. Nobody passed him the ball, nobody even pretended he was part of the game. That was when Ryan Carter and his pack of friends cornered him. Ryan was taller, stronger, and loved for the very cruelty that defined him. "Well, if it isn't Shadow Freak," Ryan sneered, shoving Elias against the bleachers. "What's it like being a walking power outage?" Laughter rippled from the others. One mimed holding a flashlight, clicking it on and off. Another said, "Careful, he'll curse your phone." Elias tried to push past, tried to walk away, but Ryan slammed a hand against his chest. "Not so fast. My mom says you burned her coffee maker last week just by walking past. Maybe you owe me." Something inside Elias snapped. The humiliation, the loneliness, the gnawing ache of being unwanted, it boiled over in an instant. The lights in the gym flickered. The air thickened, the smell of ozone sharp. "What the?" one of the boys muttered, glancing at the ceiling. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the floor, converging on Elias, feet like black water. His vision tunneled, heat welled in his palms. He raised his hands without meaning to. And blue fire erupted. It wasn't normal fire. It roared silently, an otherworldly glow that warped the air, dancing like liquid shadows. The boys screamed. Ryan stumbled back, tripping over a bench. Sprinklers went off, showering the gym, but the fire didn't die. It clung to Elias' skin, weaving between his fingers as though alive. Doors burst open. Teachers rushed in, shouting. Someone pulled the fire alarm. Sirens wailed. Through the chaos, Elias saw their faces, their terror. They weren't looking at a boy. They were looking at a monster. He stumbled backward, tears mixing with the water spraying from above. I didn't mean. That was when the men arrived. Not police, not firemen, men in black uniforms with no insignia, faces masked, radios crackling. They barked orders Elias couldn't understand. "Contain him, don't let him breach perimeter." One lifted a device that hummed with static, pointed it at Elias like a weapon. The shadows surged to protect him. He didn't command them, but they obeyed anyway, curling around his legs, rising like a tide. The gym filled with screams, alarms, the roar of something ancient and hungry inside Elias' blood. And then, 30 years later, the world had not ended that day, though for Elias it might as well have. Now, standing on the top floor of a glass tower that overlooked Argentum City, Elias barely recognized the boy who once wept in the gymnasium. That boy was gone. In his place stood Elias, CEO of Umbra Corp International. The name shone in clean silver letters across the building's crown, a beacon visible from half the city. Umbra Corp was a titan, the world's leader in energy solutions, defense technologies, and predictive algorithms. Nations courted Elias' favor. Politicians deferred to his judgment. Entire economies shifted with a single Umbra Corp press release. And Elias, he had crafted himself into the perfect enigma, sharp-suited, articulate, untouchable. People called him a genius, a visionary, even a savior. No one said freak anymore. Almost no one. Because buried beneath the corporate sheen, behind closed doors and encrypted systems, a handful of men and women knew the truth. They had seen what lurked in Elias' shadow. They had felt his presence, that bone-deep chill that whispered of something not quite human. They feared him, they respected him, they obeyed him. And Elias let them, because fear was safer than love. He stared out at the city lights now, hands clasped behind his back. From this height, Argentum looked like a circuit board, veins of neon pulsing with artificial life. People down there bustled, blind to the cracks forming in their world. Already power grids were failing without explanation. Phones picked up whispers in empty rooms. Planes vanished mid-flight. The public blamed faulty infrastructure, solar flares, terrorism. Elias knew better. The shadows were stirring again. And somewhere, deep in the bones of the earth, something else was waking with them.
Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for part 2.